All right, and welcome back to a very special episode of the Savings Angel Show. And this show is, I think, becoming a thing. So what some people may not realize is The Simpsons was actually an offshoot. You're giving me that perplexed look. Trust me, I know where I'm going with this. I've got my wife, Jenny Elledge, in the Savings Angel studio with us right now, by the way.
Hi, how are you?
And so The Simpsons began as a little animated short on a show called The Tracy Ullman Show. And of course, The Simpsons going on to become the longest running animated series of all time. The longest running TV series of all time. And it got its start as kind of piggybacking another show. And so obviously the Savings Angel Show now getting on its sixth year. Can you believe that? Podcasting for 6 years.
That's a long time.
Been doing this a long time. And I still remember that very first one I recorded, which was terrible. You can go back and listen to it, and that's okay. We all start somewhere. Right. So I think this is our Simpsons right here. I think this could truly become something.
You have some pretty lofty goals here.
I do. And that's just because of the feedback we got. The listener numbers on the episode that we recently did. And, if there's someone who's listening to our private conversation right now, they can go back a few episodes and they can listen to the one where we talk about how to fight with your spouse and how to win.
And how to win.
How to win arguments with your spouse or loved ones. Highly recommend you go back and listen to that one. And you will learn some ninja skills I think are going to make life a lot easier. I mean, if we just knew how to deal with conflict a lot more effectively. Man, just think of the problems we could avoid.
Yeah.
Well,
that was a fun little interview. So we're here for another round, huh?
So this one, we're going to talk about, Jenny, what feels like an epidemic that is sweeping the world, and that is anxiety. And anxiety, like as a term, I was thinking about this. I'm like, does everybody have anxiety right now? So just a little background. Jenny, my wife, is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if you want to learn more about her credentials, her 411, you can go on the web. Her website is JennyElledge.com, Jenny, and then Elledge is ELL, and then Edge, EDGE.com. And your contact information, all of that other stuff is online. You do therapy for both folks in Florida, and then you also do virtual.
I do virtual coaching.
Over
for
the
those
web.
not in Florida.
And just before we get started, like, what are your what's your niche? What's your specialty? Like, what kind of clients do you typically work with?
And I typically work with are couples who are coming in with marital problems, which is what we talked about last time. And what I often see in, maybe individually or even in the couple relationship is depression and anxiety. So we are going to talk about anxiety today.
Yeah. Is anxiety a new thing? Because I just, thinking back to the 80s, I don't remember hearing that term so much. And so I'm wondering if this is like, now everybody's got anxiety now. And this is like, something's in the water, something's in the air, and now everybody's got anxiety.
Well, I wonder, we might be conflating the terms anxiety and stress. So stress, in the 80s, well, also you were a kid and not an adult in the 80s.
Right.
So
I was just happy-go-lucky and,
when you're a kid, you don't tend to have as much stress, hopefully, as maybe an adult does. So maybe if you talk to your parents, they might say, I was pretty stressed about a lot of stuff back in the 80s and stuff because we had to do adulting things.
Yeah. And I guess maybe as a kid, sometimes you just tune a lot of that stuff out as, they're just doing adult stuff. I don't want to worry about that. I want to go play with my
I'm going to go play, right?
I'm going to go play with my Lincoln Logs.
Yeah,
geez.
And do adults get to go off and play? Well, maybe you should, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. And so as we get started here, let's, first off, what is anxiety, and kind of from a clinical perspective, from a DSM 4-5 definition, like what is anxiety?
So anxiety is when you have it most, well, to be clinically, have a clinical issue with anxiety is when you have anxiety lasting kind of more days than not for, maybe 6 months or more. You might have, and you're worried about a lot of different things, a lot of what if. You might have something like generalized anxiety disorder. So you need to be bothered by it most days than not, and it needs to be going on for 6 months. Stress is not exactly the same as anxiety. It feels kind of the same. You kind of have the same symptoms. You'll feel like, kind of a churning in the stomach. You might feel a little anxious, meaning like your hands are getting sweaty and your legs get a little wobbly and your thinking isn't very clear and you're kind of like, feel kind of, right? Mm-hmm. So the difference is, stress is about things that are short-lived and anxiety kind of prolonged and chronic and maybe about a lot of different things.
So what happens if I am feeling a lot of situational anxiety, but I always seem to get worked up fairly easy? Is that, do I have anxiety or what's going on? Is it just life?
It could be, depending on what's going on. If you're stressed out about work and, there's, like a project you're working on that you keep running into issues all the time, or your team members aren't getting on board with you, or there's some kind of discrepancy going on, you're going to be stressed out about that, and that is part of life, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that when people, take that to internalize it and then go, and that means I'm a bad person, or that means I'm a terrible, awful human being and I can't get anything right type of thing because nothing's going right in my life. So you don't want to extrapolate it to mean like everything in life is going wrong. That tend to be when it becomes from a regular stressful thing to like this anxiety thing where you're internalizing it and, being really, really critical of yourself.
Yeah. See, I feel like my goal is I want to live a stress-free life.
Everybody does. And you know what? And in fact, we, as a human being species, we're not very comfortable with the idea of having negative emotion. And yet it's part of the human experience. We have negative emotion. We also have positive emotion. But as soon as we feel that negative emotion, we're like, oh, we got to get rid of this, like right away.
Right.
It's really uncomfortable. I don't like this feeling. What can I do to make it go away, like right now?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's, part of the difference that we're finding now in 2019 versus in the 80s. We are accustomed to getting a lot of things that we want right away when we want it. And emotions don't necessarily work like that.
Interesting. And I wonder how much of that is just kind of society where we have the ability to solve problems. Like I feel like we have more access to resources like we've never had before. You don't have to you don't have to suffer in silence. And so as a result of that, we say, well, wait a minute, I've got depression. I can go get that fixed. And, maybe that's a prescription drug, that sort of thing. And so I just wonder if, we're now subject to our advancing society, our advancing, technology. We do have so many options now. And, kind of maybe you need a label or definition. And now I can go get that fixed because that's uncomfortable. I can fix that as opposed to maybe way back in the olden times. It's just, well, I got, the gangrene. So, just go ahead and remove the limb, or I got to go in for my bleeding and that's about all I can do. Or
even like back in the 80s, like what keep referencing, if you were stressed, you didn't have a phone, you didn't have internet, you only had, being outside and talking with people on the phone and venting to other people or sitting outside and going for a walk or.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. Those are all very, very good things.
Awesome things to do.
Yeah. So in my quest to live a stress-free life, and I'm doing okay at that some days, most days, a lot of days I'm not.
Welcome to everyone's life, right?
Okay. So it's not. Okay, so where do we want to be in terms of stress? Like how much stress is healthy stress? When does it become unhealthy?
Okay, so a moderate amount of stress is okay for when you have like an upcoming thing to do, like a test or like a project that's due at work. You want to have a moderate amount of stress. So imagine a bell curve. If you've ever taken a statistics class or a psychology class, you know what a bell curve looks like. So the bell curve at the tippy top is the moderate amount of stress. If you have too much, then it goes down to the right. If you have too little, it goes down to the left. And what happens is the moderate amount of stress can be tied to how well you perform. So if you have a moderate amount of stress, you tend to be motivated to do the work you have to do in order to accomplish the task you have coming up. If you have a low amount of stress, so it kind of becomes like, I don't really care, so I'm not going to put any effort into it. If you have too high stress, then you're like, I'm way overwhelmed, and I'm not like, I'm doing the work, but I'm not doing it very efficiently because I'm worried.
Interesting. So I kind of feel myself doing a little bit of reframing right now, where if I'm feeling stress, and it's not like an overwhelming, debilitating kind of stress,
right.
But if I've got a little bit of stress or even a moderate amount of stress, I could take a look at that and say, oh, this is actually a good thing because it's going to help me perform better. So
Absolutely.
If I've got a major thing coming up, I'm going to a conference, I'm going to be speaking, and I'm feeling a little stressed about that. That's good. That's actually, I'm going to take it serious and stuff.
You're going to take it serious. Yeah, I mean, you can have some confidence around it. Like if it's something brand new you've never done before, you'll probably feel a little bit more anxious about it. If it's something you've done a few times around, you can go, well, it's okay for me to feel stressed. I've done this before. I did okay before. I'm fairly confident it can happen again.
Yeah. All right. So then if we see this, however, we wake up and does this fit the definition of anxiety? I wake up and the first feeling I feel is dread, or kind of like there's a trigger and then, oh, hello, my old friend. There you are, anxiety. Is it kind of like that?
Is that what anxiety feels like?
I don't know. Is it? Yeah. Is it?
It can feel like dread. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you're not really looking forward to the day type of thing, yeah.
How about what we call, I've heard the term ruminating, like where you're kind of like replaying conversations over and over again, or you just imagine what conversations are going to be like, just kind of as an example, and you just kind of play out those conversations over and over and over again. I've done that I can think of some times I've done that.
I'm sure a lot of people have done that. Ruminating thoughts, you're not being very kind to yourself. You're not, you're being really critical of yourself. And so a way to interrupt maybe, so here's the thing about thoughts and the things that you tell yourself. Because we're, people with these really big brains, that can think really well and solve problems really well, we tend to think that every thought that we have, we should believe. And when it comes to like what we tell ourselves and what we believe and what our emotions are, we don't necessarily have to believe every thought that we tell ourselves. So what I like to tell people is, is the thought that you're having about yourself helpful or is it unhelpful? So you can tell if it's helpful or unhelpful by this kind of reframe, like, if my best friend was sitting next to me, or maybe a small child who I really like, maybe my own child, or maybe a niece or nephew, if they were next to me, would I say those same things to them that I'm telling myself? So let's say I messed up and did something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? I'm always messing up. I can't get anything right. So if you can catch yourself and realize what you're saying about yourself, maybe to yourself inside your head or out loud, and you go, wow, would I really say that to my best friend if she came up to me and said, oh man, I forgot to, go get this thing that was due today. I forgot to pick it up and now I feel awful. Would you really say to your friend, oh my gosh, you're such an idiot. Why can't you get anything right?
Yeah, I would hope not. You wouldn't be friends very long.
That wouldn't be a very friendly thing to say. And yet we feel like we can be this very overly and super critical of ourselves.
Yeah.
So a more helpful way would be to say to your friend, it's okay, we all make mistakes. I'm sure you can figure out something. And we're not perfect. We learn from our mistakes, and being perfect actually is kind of boring.
I've heard
that would be a more helpful thought to have about yourself.
Right. I know that there's a fear of failure too, which a lot of us feel. And like and I don't know if that's any more, like we're more afraid of failing today, or
I think we are for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a very much a cultural thing too. So, you being Finnish, sometimes I like to refer to the story. You're half Finnish. Your mom is 100% Finnish, right?
No. Listen.
No. Let's not get into the DNA story.
Okay.
In general
Spoiler
term,
alert. I'm 67% Finnish genetically.
Okay.
No, please. Okay. Thank you.
The point is, you have Finnish heritage, right? In Finland, they actually have something called like National Failure Day or something like that, where people are encouraged to go out and practice or try something that they're going to end up failing magnificently at, and then sharing that story with people. We don't really have anything like that in America. We want to be great at like everything, right? We want to be the greatest people. We want to be the greatest country. We want to be awesome at everything, and there's no room for failure. There's certainly no place to celebrate failure. Failure is looked at a very bad thing. All of society, the way we have set up our society is to only celebrate successes with grades and with, a good paycheck or with accolade from your boss and with coworkers and you have your friends kind of hopefully in your corner to back you up when you are failing type of thing to remind you, hey, we all do, but we don't really see it on social media unless you're purposely following people who are trying to kind of spread the message like, it's okay, let's be kind to ourselves. We all mess up.
Speaking of that, one thing that I learned, so I do a lot of social media marketing and I've done a lot of consulting in that space. And one thing that I will commonly is I'm looking at people's social media and I'm looking at their feed and, I'm trying to give them some advice on what they could be doing to improve their engagement. One thing that I see pretty consistently is that audiences, and again, this is just, if you're a big social media person and you're into this kind of thing, great. But people will become attracted to you initially for your beautiful lips or, your information, you're so smart, your great advice, your inspirational thing. But engagement really happens. And this is an interesting, perception in who we are and what we like. If you want more engagement, you want really people to really connect with you, then you need to share your vulnerability. You need to share your imperfections, share your failures. And when you do that, and again, I'm only talking about people who want to attract a bunch of people on social media, that really, it's like your audience now or other people say, oh, she's just like me.
Yeah, it becomes a very attractive quality. It doesn't become an unattractive thing. You become relatable, right? Like, you are like me. We are all human beings, right? You're tapping into some research from Brene Brown. So if you want to learn more about, the vulnerabilities and failures and imperfections, she's got a lot of great material there too.
Yeah, I know even in a couple dynamic, I would imagine that comes up where, maybe, me as the husband, I don't want you to see me failing, or I don't want to admit when I'm feeling insecure about something. And so as a result, I'm going to kind of bottle that up.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we're getting sidetracked and that's my fault. As always. Okay. So what we want to talk about is, let's talk about, some remedies, or not remedies, but how can we, even before anxiety becomes a problem, what types of people based on lifestyle and behavior do you think are more prone to anxiety? Because here's the thing. We're all going to have problems. That's just life. Some of us, unfortunately, it's just the way that it is. We have more challenges, more pain that comes up in life. And it sucks when that happens. Sorry, I hate to use that word, especially you got kids in the car. Kids, don't use that word. But how can we become a person that is going to be less prone to become someone who deals with anxiety? Well, and we'll talk about kind of preparatory stuff first, and then we'll talk about, well, what happens if you're dealing with it? How can you solve it in the moment? And some of these will probably cross over, but
okay. So let's just talk a little bit about biology then. So biology, biologically where anxiety comes from is from our brain, and there's a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is a small, maybe walnut-sized part of our brain, and that's where our fight, flight, or freeze response comes in.
Yep.
So I'm sure you're familiar with that. That's what happened when you see something dangerous. Biologically, back in the day when we saw a saber-toothed tiger, we would want to either fight it, flee it, or freeze. Freeze was probably not going to be a great response for that particular animal, maybe for a bear type of thing. So over time, you kind of learn which direction you want to go. But so what happens is when the amygdala is activated, it's hardwired to overtake the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is right behind your forehead. And that part of the brain is where you make all your executive functioning, decision-making skills and impulse control, and very much the thinking part of our brain. And so when the amygdala is activated, and you're feeling the adrenaline coursing through your veins, and you'll notice that the logical part of your brain is going to start to get a little fuzzy, and that there's a biological reason for it. So don't beat yourself up like, why can I not think straight when I'm stressed out or I'm like really, really anxious? Biologically, that's what's happening to your brain.
Right.
So what you need to learn to do over, with habits that we'll get into talking about with some good habits, you can learn to calm that part of the brain down. So if you know that it's being triggered by not a saber-toothed tiger, but by like social rejection, someone said something kind of mean to you, and you're like feeling kind of, I feel awful about myself, and you keep thinking about the awful things that the person said about you.
I would rather take the saber-toothed tiger.
Well, because it's a very clear definition of what the danger is.
Right.
With that social kind of rejection, it feels a little bit weird, right? Because we very much are social people. We want to feel part of a tribe, part of a community. We don't like to feel like the outsider. And again, that's biology. Over time, over evolution, we learned that we do better in surviving if we are with a group of people, right? Yeah. We don't want to be the outsider. So anyway, when the amygdala is activated, we want to learn how to calm it down.
Yeah, I could picture me as a caveman. I'd be out, with my spear and taking down saber-toothed tigers, get back around the campfire. Grog makes some wise crack about, how I can't throw a spear, and there you go. My fight or flight kicks in.
Men might have this fantasy, and I don't think women have this fantasy at all.
And of course, growing up too, I was kind of thinking about this. Kids can be mean. There's all kinds of social messed up stuff that can happen in middle school and high school, and that imprints on us. I was just thinking about
and the thing is, we don't necessarily want to escape from all of the suffering in life, because what happens is when we have suffering in life, we learn how to be more resilient to that. Like, you said this really dumb thing about me, but I'm choosing not to believe you. I'm still a good person, and I'm going to prove you wrong, or I'm going to focus on my other good qualities, or I'm going to say, there might be something else going on in your life, why that you're choosing to be mean to me or whatever. But, suffering, you need to have suffering in order to bounce back from things and learn how to be resilient.
Yeah. I think the simple way for that is, a simple answer that I've used is, if I do experience critical information, or, someone says something very critical, I say, well, that's not me. That's them. That's their interpretation of me, and they get to kind of take that with them, and I don't have to take that with me. That's kind of how I've been able to process that sort of thing.
That's a good adult way of handling things.
And
it takes time and practice to learn to develop that skill, like a lot of things.
Yeah. All right. So, what are some lifestyle things that folks can do to be less negatively impacted by the stressful stuff that it's just going to happen. I mean, there's going to be something in the next 30 days and I'm going to be upset about it. Or it's going to be, I shouldn't say, it's going to be an upsetting thing. It has the potential to truly upset me or worry me, that sort of thing. And not to be fearful of this impending thing, but what are some lifestyle things I can do to just maybe mess with my biology so that I'm less prone to that?
So a lot of the things that you hear about from your doctor, about good general health is applicable to mental health too. So you want to get good sleep, you want to eat well, and you want to exercise, and you want to practice good self-care. And what I mean by self-care is all of those things, plus maybe noticing what things you like to do to maybe soothe yourself, so that you feel like you want to, like that cortisol, that, the stress hormone that builds up over the day. You want to have like some kind of ritual, like maybe after work or after dinner, to kind of bleed that off. Maybe an after dinner walk to kind of, notice your surroundings, turn off the phone, be very present in the moment. Maybe at nighttime before you go to bed, you might want to take a warm bath if you like that sort of thing, or do like a meditation app, or even do something as simple as belly breathing. Belly breathing is one of my favorite things to teach my clients because it's easy, portable, and very effective. Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about how to do that now if you like.
Yeah.
So belly breathing is when you breathe from your diaphragm. So normally when we're not thinking about breathing, we breathe from our upper parts of our lungs, and then we just kind of breathe without really thinking about it. But when we're being intentional about our breathing, we're breathing from our diaphragm. And for you, Josh, you're totally used to doing this because you practice talking from your diaphragm when you do broadcasting, right?
In broadcasting school, they taught us to speak all over again. And it was, again, you have to like, from down here.
Talking from the diaphragm instead of from your throat, probably like I am right now. But yeah, you breathe from your belly. You want to breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds. So breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and breathe out through your mouth for 10 seconds. So you want to breathe out twice as long as you're breathing in through your nose. So breathing in through the nose for 5 and out through the mouth for 10 seconds. And when you're breathing out, you kind of want to make a little O shape with your mouth. And imagine you're trying to blow out a birthday candle, but not blow it out. You want to kind of blow through it so it doesn't quite go out. So it's a nice, gentle breath out.
It's kind of like taking a smoke break. I don't know.
I don't know what
but that's
like.
What people talk about, right? It's like, and then it kind of relieves their...
Well, they probably has some nicotine things happening there too, but...
Yeah. But they talk about the general idea of just taking that, like just going out with the smokers or whatever and just hang out with them and just take a break. That in and of itself is super helpful.
Taking a break is always good throughout your workday. And then what happens is that it activates the vagus nerve that runs kind of from our gut all the way up to our brain. And it's like a big nerve that we have in our body. This is kind of like a biohack. If you want to know about how to kind of, when you got anxiety spiking and you got stress spiking and it's getting like too much, and then do this belly breathing. Usually you can practice it for about 3 to 5 breaths and you will notice a difference. If you've caught it kind of early on. If you're already like in panicky mode, it's going to take you a little bit longer, but that's fine.
And there's the type A in me that is hearing this and going, that's not a good use of my time. Like I need to be, I need to keep at it, keep charging.
I know. I get that from people. Yeah. This is why when I have someone in the office, I actually do it with them. I don't tell them about it like I am here. Yeah. I'm actually like, watch me breathe. I'm going to count it out. I usually do a finger motion 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so they know what the pace is like. And we practice it about 3 times in the office. And then I say, do you notice anything? Most of the time people will say, yeah, I feel a little bit more relaxed. I'm like, this, you can see it working. If I'm already relaxed and I'm doing it, I will notice myself by that 3rd breath and I'm breathing out. By the time I hit number 10, I'm like, whew, I feel a little bit sleepy.
Yeah. Maybe you got to like gamify it for them or something like that.
No.
I'm like thinking of that comic strip that there's like a type A person and, another guy says to him, he's like, hey, relax, man. You got to just relax and smell the flowers. And so in the next panel, he's like, grabbing all these flowers and just like, like inhaling like this big pot of flowers. And then in the next panel, he's holding up a trophy that says flower smelling champion, hoisting it in the air. Like, yeah.
Again, we're just learning about what works for you, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm being silly.
Yeah.
Okay, so belly breathing, so that really does make a big difference.
It does.
What are the other lifestyle stuff? I mean, we talked about getting a full night's sleep, for example. We talked about making time to go out, and it's like, look, you're going to have to make some sacrifices.
I wouldn't even call it sacrifice.
But you got to commit. You got to commit to it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's an investment in myself. So if
that's
I
a good
take,
term. It's an investment in yourself. That's why we call it self-care. And we tend to be, I don't know, maybe depending on what your family situation is, or if you're living by yourself, you may not think, oh, I don't have time to take care of myself. But really, if you think about this as an investment, what you'll find is over time, as you incorporate these good, healthy habits, that when stressful things do happen, that they're kind of like shock absorbers in your car. Like when you have these good self-care habits in place and you hit a bump, you kind of go, ooh, I felt that. Ooh. But okay, I can bounce back from this. Whereas if you don't have these self-care habits and you're running low on sleep and you're not like walking and you're not exercising and you're just like laying in bed all the time, or you're just like on the go with no downtime, then when you hit a bump, something stressful, it's like bam, right? It's like bam. Oh my gosh, this is so hard. Whereas if you have these self-care things, it's like, ooh, that was kind of a bump, but I think I can figure this out.
For me, I think what I do or what I aspire to do would be to say, who do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better husband. I want to have more patience. I want to be more present for the people that I love. And if I invest that, like, even though like I don't enjoy meditation. Like I've tried listening to meditation apps. However, and I don't really enjoy the process. I kind of find myself saying, oh, when is this going to be over? This is going on forever. But I can't argue with the fact that at the end of it, I feel more relaxed. And as a result of that investment, or taking a walk, like I love walking my doggy Levi. We have a mini Australian Shepherd, Levi. He's amazing. He loves going for walks. Like that makes me a better dad and a better husband, taking that time and investing it in myself.
Yeah. So that means you have to wake up earlier. You could sleep in instead of doing that. So some days you might choose to sleep in, but then you notice, that's not really working out that well for me. I'm going to wake up a little bit earlier. So try to think of it as experimenting with different things and adding different things like walking, and say, it doesn't have to be like perfect out of the gate. I'm just going to experiment with it and see how it goes for me.
What are some ways you can interrupt? Like if you find yourself in a cycle where you're just ruminating over and over and over again, or let's say something bad happened. You had to blow up with your sister, mom, something like that. And now you're just, it's.
So it's important to know that when we're activated, when that amygdala is activated, it's going to take 20 minutes minimum to calm down.
Wow.
So just
there's nothing wrong with me if it does.
Right. So just know biologically you're going to be agitated for 20 minutes, and that is okay. So during those 20 minutes, you can kind of do the belly breathing. You can go for a walk. You can journal, invent. You can call a friend, invent. This is where you kind of have to be very intuitive about what works for you personally, because it's different for everybody.
Yeah. And we're actually referring, by the way, a lot of what we're talking about. There's an article on Savings Angel right now, and it's called The 3 Most Effective Ways to Crush Anxiety. And I like saying it like that, like some German dictator. Yeah. We're going to crush anxiety. And so if you go to Savings Angel right now, you can find this article. Jenny, I love what we're talking about, and I'm actually, I feel so good that the person who's listening to this is going to benefit from this. But I think we all know people that really struggle with this. We talked about its prevalence. People that worry a lot, and so I would encourage anyone who's listening to this conversation right now. Please share this with a friend. Take a screenshot with your phone. Find the episode on savingsangel.com. You can share that link. Certainly in most podcast apps that you listen to, there's going to be some kind of little share button where you can click that. Click the little send a text message to someone with a link to this, and it's my hope and that we can impact lives. And I know you impact lives on a regular basis through your practice, and you've been able to help I would imagine you've helped a lot of people with anxiety issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Pretty common. What percentage do you think, folks coming in have some level of
I don't know.
That was a shrug, and you looked up at the ceiling.
I'm not a math person.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, so so we talked about some lifestyle things, and what about you've got chronic anxiety that can lead to like this feeling of paralysis where you just you don't know what to do. You're just stuck.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, that's kind of where where the ruminating thought come in. Like, I shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? That was so dumb that I did that over and over and over. Or like replaying those conversations like you talked about earlier. I'm like, you're just being very self-critical. So you want to interrupt those negative thought patterns like I talked about before. Like, would you actually say this to a friend type of thing? Well, maybe you should be a little bit more gentler with yourself. The thing that you say to your friend, say to yourself. It's okay. Yeah. But to add another layer to that, you can feed your anxiety information. So let's say you are worried about how much debt you have.
Yeah.
And I talked about this in my blog. So let's say you're worried about, and you're like, I actually have no idea how I'm going to pay all of my debt off.
Yeah.
So you, because it feels overwhelming, you avoid it. So anything that you avoid, by the way, your brain learns in pattern. So anything you avoid, your brain is going to notice that and go, oh, that's a very fearful thing. Bills are very fearful. Not having information about bills and how to pay this off is very, very frightening. So I'm going to strengthen that connection. I'm going to strengthen that anxiety feeling so that every time you see a bill come in, you're like, oh, type of thing.
Yeah.
So you want to be careful about what you're avoiding. And this is where you kind of have to call on your courage and say, I'm going to do it, and go open up the bill, write down the information. Don't try to store all the information in your brain because that's just going to overly stress your brain.
Yeah.
All you're doing there is just trying to keep a bunch of information in your short-term memory banks, and that's just like, don't forget this, and that's just going to add another layer of stress. So that's why writing things out is very helpful because you don't have to rely on your short-term memory bank.
Yeah.
Anyway, so so you want to call on the courage, you want to write out the information down, and then you want to make a plan. When you make a plan, you might need to call in an expert to help you make a plan, or call a friend, or Google it, or something, or just rely on yourself, and then say, this is my plan. Once you have your plan, then you're going to feel more empowered. And that anxiety, stressful, dread feeling is going to diminish over time because you're like, so when you have that thought come up like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay all these bills? You're like, oh, wait, hang on, I have a plan. I already wrote it down. I don't have to think about it anymore. So you remind yourself, I have a plan. Stick to the plan.
Yeah. One thing, I didn't have this advice necessarily. So when I was 20 years old, I remember, so I was in the Navy. I was in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii at the time, and just had a bad breakup with a girlfriend. And I mean, she was terrible for me. She was not you. So you give me that look. And so the breakup just happened. I was having a lot of stress with my Navy job. I was having stress with, I was always working this second job, moonlighting, working at a movie theater. I think I had some family issues. I mean, it was just so many things all at the same time. And so I felt my brain would just kind of like, bebop back and forth about all these worries, all about these negative feelings. And so what I ended up doing is, I remember this was at the movie theater at the Pearl Kai movie theater in the mall. I was on break. I had a 15-minute break. And so I just took out a piece of paper and I said, I'm just going to list off all the things that I'm worried about right now. Mm-hmm. And I just tried to like make an exhaustive list of everything that was troubling me that my brain would go to. So I listed that all out. Mm-hmm. And then I said, okay, well, and then I kind of went through each item and I talked about, well, what is something I can do? Maybe some of this stuff I just don't have a whole lot of influence right now. So it has more to do with maybe I need to think about this differently or process this in some way. And some things I was able to take action on, or come up with a substitute, spend more time with my roommate, or, just even though I don't want to, just be around friends, or, I'd give myself something that would probably help with that solution, find a friend to talk to, that sort of thing. Yeah. That experience, right? That was one of the most stressful times of my life that I can recall. And that exercise, I mean, it really was, my problems did not get fixed overnight. Right. But I felt as though I had hope. And I had hope that, over the next, some of this stuff may never get fixed. But I at least I wasn't confused or overwhelmed by that. At least like, look, I've already kind of written all this out. And so if you're worried about your income or your debt, or you have an issue with your children, which, as parents, I mean, it's, always, I think we often worry about our kids. Yeah. And that's just normal. That's what everybody does. Yeah. And so putting pen to paper or journaling or something. It's really
effective. A lot of people try to resist the idea because they're like, I don't need to. And they try to do a shortcut and be like, I'll just think it out in my head. Yeah. I'm like, again, like I said, you don't want to overly stress out your brain when you don't need to. When the actual writing of the information actually activates a different part of our brain, so it makes it feel a little bit more productive. We like feeling productive and we like feeling like a little bit more control over our situation. So when you write things out and you go, let's experiment with it. So that means this is my working hypothesis for right now. I'm going to try this experiment where if I have a family issues and I feel like I've done everything I can, what can I do that's different? Well, maybe I'll try talking with friends or hanging out with friends more than I am with my family. Yeah. And then see how that goes. Yeah. That becomes your new working hypothesis, right? So it's your new plan. It's a plan, and then you try it for a period of time, and you'll see how well that works for you, and you go, okay. And then when you are stressed about the family thing again, you go, okay, wait, hang on, I have a plan about the type of thing.
What about if there's something that you're afraid of? Like it's something that, man, I'm just constantly afraid of being in social situations. Like, I mean, and that gives you anxiety.
Yeah, that's pretty common. Again, what I talked about before, avoidance, unfortunately, I'm sorry to tell you, you have to expose yourself to the thing that you're afraid of. Why? Because we've learned over time that our brains are pretty plastic. So there's a term called neuroplasticity, where we know that we can literally rewire our brain. So remember I told you the brain likes to learn patterns. So it makes a connection, but it's not permanent. So we can always make new connections. So let's say you have anxiety about being in a social situation or giving a talk or a speech or something in front of a group of people. A lot of people have that type of anxiety, right? Yeah. What you learn over time is that you call on your courage, you make yourself do it, practice beforehand, practice, giving the speech in your head in front of an imaginary audience, and then go and do the thing. Be kind to yourself afterward. You'll learn from the experience. It's okay to not be perfect right out of the gate, type of thing. And then over time, as you do it more and more, your brain will learn, oh, this is not as scary as I thought it was. Yeah. Oh, we're not actually dying when we give a talk, even though we felt like that in the beginning. Over time, we learned, oh, this is not that scary. So exposure to feared situations and making yourself do it anyway. So another thing to remember is that courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Courage is when you do the thing you're afraid of anyway.
Yeah, I love that. Is that a famous quote or something?
I don't know. It sounds good though.
It's it.
I'm sure I've read it somewhere.
To the person who's listening to us, like I want you to know that like you're in good company. Like I feel anxiety. Jenny, you feel anxiety over stuff. Yeah. I have.
It is the human experience, so you are not alone. People, depending on who you follow on social media and who you talk to, people may talk about it or they may not, but just know you're not alone because literally everyone experiences stress, anxiety to some degree or another.
And I think that social media sometimes can exasperate our feelings of anxiety because we think that we see all these people and they have these perfect lives and look, there they are on vacation. Everybody's smiling and hugging each other.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
And so we think, I'm damaged goods. I'm broken and everyone else is all happy and I'm not, listen, you are loved. I'm just going to tell you that friend to friend, you are loved because guess what? Everybody's dealing with it. Mm-hmm. They're not posting their anxiety over all their stuff because we're afraid to share that stuff.
It's vulnerability, and not everyone wants to be. And you don't have to be vulnerable with everybody that you meet. Right? You don't have to share your vulnerable self with everything and everyone. So that's why you only see the good stuff for the most part on social media, unless you're that type of person who doesn't mind sharing, and that's why we're all different anyway. But yeah, I mean, feeling anxious, feeling stress is a normal human condition. Even animals feel it too.
Yeah, they do.
They have fight, flight, or flee responses too. You'll see it all the time. You go out on your walks and you see, we were out on a walk this morning, we saw a rabbit who was just sitting there, and by the time we walked by, he just hops away, right? Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm not going to approach these people. I'm going to walk away because that's what I've learned, that this is what I am biologically wired to do. I should just kind of leave potentially dangerous situations behind.
Smart move, bunny rabbit. Yeah. You don't know what
Even though we would have done nothing, but the bunny doesn't know that, right?
Yeah, speak for yourself. I'd love a new bunny rabbit pet. Aww. Yeah. Well, maybe for short term. And so, Jenny, I was just going to say this too, regarding social media, is that I heard this, it's really easy to compare your blooper reel with everybody else's highlight reel. And so social media is not real life, just like reality TV is not real life. It's a slice of real life. And so it's not a proper apples to apples comparison.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay. Sure. So Jenny, anything else on this subject before we kind of wrap up here?
I think I've given a lot of thought today.
Oh man,
anxiety.
Yeah.
It was fun to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, so you help a lot of good people, and so right now, open up in a browser if you're like, hey, I like this Jenny. I wonder what she looks like. Oh, she's beautiful. And so if nothing else, if you want to see what my wife looks like, I married up. I got very, very lucky. Right place, right time. And we'll have to, again, share how I was able to land the ultimate dream girl way back when. We'll tell our kind of coming together story sometime. So you can find Jenny and all the work that she does with clients, both virtually over the web or in person in Orlando here, and that's at JennyElledge.com. Jenny with a Y, Jenny, and then Elledge is ELLEDGE. And you actually have a phone number too, which goes to your assistant who manages your schedule. Mm-hmm. And I know you have a little busy schedule, especially as school's getting started. A lot of people, maybe don't address issues during the summer. School starts to get back into our regular routine and everyone's like, okay, I got to get this taken care of. And so you have the opportunity to help some good people. I know your schedule's getting a little booked up, but that phone number is 208-391-7800. 8804. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Does that sound like your phone number? Okay.
And then you'll either talk to Cindy or Lisa, and they'll help you out.
Yeah. And they can get you help out and put on Jenny's schedule. And is it scary to do therapy? I mean, if for someone who's never done it, it sounds...
Okay, so like any new job is going to be scary at first, right? Because you're just kind of learning the ropes.
Yeah.
You have your education to back you up, of course, but then you go and do the job.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay. And then over time, you kind of learn from experience. You keep getting training. You network with,
Well, I know you're amazing at your job. I'm thinking about the client. So someone is like, I've never talked to a therapist. Does that mean I'm damaged? Does that mean I'm broken? Does that, is it going to be
I think everybody could use a therapy session or two in their lifetime, if only to just. Yeah, I just got a comment from another. Actually, she was a young girl that came in and talked to me, and afterward, her parent came in and we were talking, and she goes, "She's awesome. I feel so much better." And they're like, "See, this is what happens when you talk to a third person that's not intimately involved in your everyday life, and you get that validation from another person. There's just something about it. It works."
Yeah. It's helpful to talk to someone who's outside.
It's the third party thing that is something about it that makes it work better.
Yeah. And I think a good therapist too, I think, you're going to get to a feeling of comfort pretty quickly because a good therapist tends to be a really good listener. And then, I think the idea is just to help you discover things about yourself. Therapist is not necessarily just going to give you, your solution is to do blah, 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 blah.
Oh, correct. Yeah. They're going to develop rapport with you. They're going to, validate where you're coming from, try to understand where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. It's a collaboration. We want to figure out what the goals are and how we're going to get there together.
I want to be an amazing dad. I want to be an amazing husband. I want to be really good at what I do professionally. Yeah. So I've talked to therapists and, throughout my adult life, and it's helpful. And I don't often get answers from them, but they help me discover the answers that I already have and I get that clarity.
Yeah.
I was just not able to get those answers on my own. They were there, but it just took someone helping me kind of navigate that. And then bam, few sessions, 3-4 sessions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see this now. Yeah. So it doesn't take that's another misconception too, is that, if you start working with a therapist, you're going to be doing it for years.
Well, yeah, your therapist should be able to tell you kind of after you first meet how long the whole process will take.
Some things will take a little.
If you have a mild situation, it might take, 2, 3, 4 sessions. If it's moderate, it's going to take 8 to 12. If it's more severe, it could be several months to a year long. Yeah. That's where your infidelity and sexual abuse type situation come in there. So, but if you're concerned about how long it's going to take, your therapist should be able to tell you.
Yeah. Well, God bless you for the work you're doing, Jenny Elledge.
Thank you.
You help a lot of good people. And thank you so much for being on the Savings Angel show. Again, the reason that I studied family science in college is I had a dream of being a love doctor. You remember that?
I do remember that.
I was listening.
A big dream. Yeah.
I was listening to Adam and Dr. Drew, and when I was way back when.
And Dr. Laura.
Yep. And I actually worked at a radio station. One of my moonlighting jobs is I worked at KGU Radio, an AM radio station, and they had love phones. I want to say it's like with Dr. Angelina and Trevor. So she was the smart therapist and he was just the goofy, doing the slapstick radio stuff or whatever. But I was just like, man, if these knuckleheads can do this, I can do this. I can at least be the slapstick goofy guy. And
so now, 25 years
here
later,
I am.
Your dream is coming true. Yeah, is that what I hear you saying?
Fulfilled my dream of being a slapstick goofy guy. No. So one compliment when people would call into Loveline is they would say, "Oh, Dr. Drew, you're so smart, and Adam, you're funny." And so Adam's
and they both say, "Thank you."
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, again, JennyElledge.com and the phone number 208-391-7804. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. Hey, it's Friday. Let's go do something fun together.
Yay,
Let's go to One nice perk of living in Orlando is you get theme parks nearby. It's part of why we decided to move here 11 some years ago.
We're visiting Epcot tonight, yes?
Let's go to Epcot. We're going to go see the Guardians of the Galaxy show that they've got. They've got a stage. I am too. I love the music.
We haven't seen this before. This is
new.
new.
I know. I like
go check it out.
Like the new stuff. All right, Jenny, thank you.
All right. See ya. Bye.
You're giving me that perplexed look. Trust me, I know where I'm going with this.